There's so much to come this week, and so we needed to pull in some help, and we have this morning political science professor, and also professor and dean at North Central College, Dr. Stephen Caliendo, joining me to talk a little bit more about the magnitude of this moment for the Democratic Party. We've talked so much leading up to this, and now it's finally here. So let's start with what's maybe the biggest topic for either candidate right now, and that would be the economy. We saw that Vice President Kamala Harris rolled out her policy on Friday, and that was met with very mixed reviews. And then we also have President Trump, former President Trump, who has tried to issue some conversations, or have some moments where he talks about the economy, but then veers away from the message.
That's right.
So talk a little bit more about the magnitude of that, but then where it's getting lost.
Yeah, I mean, normally we would say that the rollout on Friday was a little bit clumsy, but as you noted, compared to former President Trump, clumsy is kind of a relative term. He does veer off script, veer off focus, but both candidates need to be talking about the economy. They need to be serious about it. They need to meet people where they are, help understand what their feelings are, not just what the indicators say, not just what the financial indicators say, but what are people feeling in their pocketbooks. So we're going to hear a heavy dose of that this week, I would imagine. Maybe less tonight. Seems like it's a celebration of President Biden, the transition, sort of passing the baton to a new generation. But certainly as we get more into heavy policy discussions, the economy is going to be a central focus.
Yeah, so for Vice President Harris this week, she has a tall task ahead of her, reintroducing herself to the American public. But also there's this semblance of trying to tout the accomplishments of a Biden-Harris administration while also distancing herself a bit from President Biden and some of his policies, while you hear Republicans say now the Harris administration.
You bet. You bet. Well, it's a fine line to walk, right? I mean, on the one hand, she's been vice president for the last 3.5 years. She is part of the administration. She has to own that record, for better, for worse, however she wants to frame it. On the other hand, she is her own candidate. But distancing herself too much from the president is going to have negative effects too for some of the folks, because he has a strong base as well, and so she's going to be walking that line the whole way through. That's going to be important for her to do. I think setting up so much about President Biden tonight is going to let the transition come to more Kamala Harris for the next 3 nights.
And so when you talk about the next 3 nights, we're going to be hearing from several people. It's amazing that it's now been 20 years since President Barack Obama was just then a state legislator who was going to Boston and gave a speech that kind of got the eyes of the nation, like, who is this man?
That's right.
Now coming to a convention as a former president. But it begs the question about local politicians and state politicians and what it means to them to be a part of the DNC. So in this case, that would be Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson.
There's a real opportunity here for up-and-coming politicians to make a brand. You mentioned 2004 in Boston when Barack Obama gave that speech. Very few people knew him at the moment, but he gave the keynote at that address because Democratic leaders saw him as up-and-coming. And I think you might have a similar kind of attraction with J.B. Pritzker. Certainly, they're going to be welcoming to the home state, and the mayor will be here. Brandon Johnson will be here welcoming folks to his city. It's a chance for us to show off our beautiful city. There's no question about that. But in terms of whether or not nationally people are going to be paying attention and keeping an eye on somebody who seems to be up-and-coming, it may be more than those two as well. I mean, those are our local folks, but there'll be more than those two as well that catch somebody's attention this week.
That's true. We never know who might catch America's eye.
That's right. Indeed.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be with you.
We really appreciate your help as always. We're going to pull on him to come back in the show a little bit later on this week as well, but I'll send it back to you for now.